Welcome to the OK Let's Learn podcast, where everything's about learning. We've got our OK Book Club where we dive into books and stories, and we've got OK Let's Learn where we dive into books and tons of different topics. So today, let's learn about January's top 20 moments in history. And I will say this up front. With piggybacking on January's top 20 people, it just didn't seem right to rank the moments. Why? Well, just think about it. How can you say that one moment is better than another? And then when you talk about better, what does that mean? You're talking about moments that were horrible, horrific, just downright wrong. And then obviously other moments are inspiring and wonderful. So of course you want to rank the moments being wonderful, but this is more about moments that shaped our history, that changed history, that had an impact on history. So going along with the theme of it being influential, again, it just didn't seem right to rank them. So I will have these 20 big moments, you can call them impactful moments, moments that shaped and changed our history. But they won't be, like I said, ranked. They will be in no particular order. The only order that they will be in will be starting from January 1st. So let's get started. Number 1, January 1st. New Year's Day was established in 45 BC. It was established by Julius Caesar. He reformed the Roman calendar and officially made the 1st of January the start of the new year. This decision shaped much of the world because today we still measure time based on the 12 months. And talk about a fascinating story that we can get into. Originally, there wasn't 12 months. There were 10 months. But every New Year's celebration traces its time back to the Roman change that Julius Caesar made. Number 2, also on January 1st, the Emancipation Proclamation takes effect. This declared that slaves in the Confederate States were to be free. This change transformed the Civil War really into a fight against slavery and set a moral direction for our nation. 3, finally, on January 1st, Ellis Island opens. It was the main place where people came into the United States. This was in 1892. And by the way, the Emancipation Proclamation was in 1863. And why does it matter? Ellis Island opening? 12 million immigrants entered the United States through this one location, shaping our culture, everything about our identity. Number 4, January 8th, 1815, the Battle of New Orleans. The United States, led by future President Andrew Jackson, defeated the British in the final battle of the War of 1812. The war had already ended. One of the most amazing facts about early America, they didn't know the war was over. It was fought anyway, and this victory just had our confidence go through the roof. It's absolutely amazing story. Number 5, January 9th, 2007. What's amazing about this list is that some of these events I lived through and I can remember. Well, what happened on this day? Steve Jobs unveiled the first iPhone. This phone is something that we all know today. I'm using it right now as I'm speaking. The fact that we have a podcast goes back to Steve Jobs and Apple, but the iPhone fundamentally changed everything, communication technology, the way we live, by putting the internet in everyone's pocket. Number 6, January 10th, 49 BC. Julius Caesar, again, he's on this list. He crossed the Rubicon. He led his army across the Rubicon River, violating Roman law. This particular moment triggered a civil war and marked the end of the Roman Republic. Crossing the Rubicon still means making a decision that you can't undo. Again, awesome moments, interesting moments, historical moments that will be a topic of a future episode. Number 7, January 11th, 1964. Talk about something that's impactful. The Surgeon General's report on smoking. The U.S. Surgeon General officially linked smoking to cancer and heart disease. This changed everything about our health policy, the way we looked at society through the lens of tobacco. It changed everything. I was born in 1962, 2 years before this. Everyone, if you look back at old movies from the 50s and the 40s, certainly, black and white movies, you'll see everyone smoking. It was just what people did. My own father had cigarettes in his top drawer in his bedroom, and I always wondered, why? Why, Dad? And again, it was just almost to be cool. I say that, and it's just so wrong saying it out loud, but I was coming through high school, and it was very common that a lot of the kids halfway through lunch, after we had eaten, would go out to the smoking lounge. And it seemed like half the kids were out there. So smoking doesn't happen here today. Very rare. And that's a great thing. Number 8, January 15th, 2009. The Miracle on the Hudson. Again, most of you that are listening to this podcast now remember that day. You know where you were when you heard the news reports. You could seeing this plane that Sully Sullenberger landed on the Hudson River. It's sitting there, right there on the water with everyone on both wings. And they all survived. All 155 people survived, making it really one of the most remarkable aviation rescues ever. Not just the rescue, but just landing the plane in the river. Stories, books, podcasts, movies have been told about this amazing moment. Number 9, January 15th, 1919, the 18th Amendment was ratified. Yeah, this is all about prohibition. It banned alcohol. This became the law of the land. It reshaped our society. Unfortunately, a lot of people ended up breaking the law, and it ultimately proved to be a major lesson in unintended consequences because it was rescinded. This ban on alcohol was rescinded not long afterward. An amazing time in our history. Number 10, January 17th, 1991, Operation Desert Storm begins. It was a U.S.-led coalition that launched airstrikes against Iraq after it had invaded Kuwait. Again, not long ago, it marked a new era in warfare. It was on TV. It certainly was controversial. any war is controversial from the standpoint of, it just being so horrible, so horrific. And I'll never forget that day. Back in the day, I was selling insurance and I walked into a customer's house in Teaneck, New Jersey, and we didn't talk insurance. We just stood there in front of the TV watching all the events unfold on CNN. And it was just so unbelievable, especially for someone of my generation. And I was very young when the Vietnam War was happening. I wasn't alive when the Korean War went on, certainly World War II. I was born in 1962. So my generation was fortunate. There was no draft for my age. And having a war be on TV, and for, again, my generation, my age, I'm mid-60s now, seeing it for the first time was really just horrible. Number 11, January 19th, 2020. Talk about horrible. It was the first COVID-19 case that was confirmed here in the United States. It was in Washington State, and certainly it marked the beginning of the pandemic. Just horrible. My students and I and the entire world, face masks became a reality. For some time we were in school and behind splash guards on individual desks. We could not share or touch anything that anybody else touched early on. And obviously, tragically, so many people passed away. Number 12, January 20th, the United States Inauguration Day. The only day on this calendar that doesn't have a particular year. It's every 4 years where the President of the United States is sworn into office. Number 13, January 21st, 1793, Louis XVI was executed. The King of France was publicly killed during the French Revolution. It really shattered the idea of kings and queens being divine and permanently changed everything about Europe and all of its politics. 14, January 21st, 1924, Vladimir Lenin passes away. He was the leader of the Russian Revolution, and he died after years of illnesses. Listen, his death opened the door for Joseph Stalin, who certainly shaped global politics for decades. Lenin certainly is on this list as someone who influenced the course of history going forward. 15, January 24th, 1848, at Sutter's Mill in California, gold was discovered. It started the California gold rush that pretty much changed the American West forever. And certainly it accelerated everyone to head out to the West to seek their riches. Ultimately, they called these people the 49ers because in the next year, tons of people ended up coming out. 16, January 27th, 1945. This is why we don't rank particular moments in time, because this is so horrific. It was on this day that Auschwitz was liberated. The Jewish concentration camp was liberated by the Soviet Union on this day. And the world really learned the full horror of the Holocaust that changed everything. It changed how we looked at humanity. 17, January 28th, 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded shortly after liftoff. I was with a coworker just out of college working at ADP. We walked into a National Westminster Bank in Yonkers, New York. And no one was doing any business. Everyone was just watching the horrific events as they were detailed on the TV, up on the wall in this particular branch. I'll never forget it. January 29th, 1845, The Raven was published. Yes, one of the towering figures in American literature. This narrative poem was known for its dark, haunting story of a morning student that was visited by this talking, mysterious raven that was constantly repeating, "Nevermore, nevermore." It explored tons of different themes, madness and loss, and it was on this particular day that his most famous work instantly brought him widespread fame and popularity. Rounding out our 20 defining moments in history that occurred in January 30th, 1933, Hitler becomes the Chancellor of Germany. This decision led directly to the rise of Nazi Germany in World War II. A horrible moments that began on this day. And unfortunately, wrapping up the 20 moments on January 30th, 1948, again, a horrible moment. Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated in New Delhi, in India. The world on this particular day lost a symbol of nonviolent resistance that was ultimately so influential for Martin Luther King and further leaders in the future. But it's no doubt his influences shaped civil rights movements in the past and still even today. Now, as an addendum to our 20 moments, I would be remiss without saying January 6th. January 6th is probably one of those days that you just say the day and you know the day. September 11th, July 4th, December 7th, June 6th. Good or bad, it is a reality, but I chose not to include it in our 20 moments. It's still too raw. But with all these dates, what I encourage you to do, and this is what my podcast is all about, let's learn. Let's learn. Take what you've heard, run with it, investigate it, read about it. And you know what? I just think that some of these dates clearly you knew off the top of your head before we even went through my list. Like I said, maybe you didn't know about it, but in my opinion, you should know these dates. Their importance, they shaped our history, and they ultimately defined who we are today as a society, as a world community. I hope you enjoy this. I know you have some disagreements. Moments in January that I did not include. I forgot. I made a mistake. So I'd love to hear from you. You can send me a text through your podcast provider. You can send an email to kevmok21@gmail.com. And to wrap up, again, nice little fun review out on Apple Podcasts from UO21650. Mr. OK, or Kevin, is covering a wide variety of topics and bringing them to us in an informational yet conversational way. His approach makes learning seem like sitting down to a conversation with a friend. Truth be told, I've learned a lot from his material, especially the most recent episode on the Spartans. Very well done. Well, thank you, U021650, number U. Anyway, it's really heartwarming, and thank you very much. If you do have thoughts on the podcast and would be kind enough to leave me a review, if you'd like, I'll read it on a future episode. So that's a wrap on another episode. Until next time, have fun and keep learning.